Modern society relies on the laws of biology and physics to make sense of the world. These disciplines provide a set of concrete rules and predictable outcomes that allow us to believe we understand the mechanics of life. This chart illustrates the standard scientific view of mortality. Life is a linear progression that terminates at a hard, impenetrable barrier. Under these laws, clinical death is an absolute endpoint. This unyielding faith in science creates a specific vulnerability. When the established rules of biology stop applying, our logical frameworks provide no way to process the result. 3 documented historical events challenge this orderly view of the world. These cases weren't reported by superstitious observers, but by highly trained medical and analytical professionals. Doctors, medical students, and reporters, the very people trained to identify hoaxes and apply clinical logic, served as the primary witnesses. Despite all their expertise, the scientific tools they relied on failed to explain the physical phenomena they encountered. These 3 cases suggest the boundary between life and death is a porous threshold that escapes scientific control. In 1870, 2 Harvard medical students named James and William operated with a firm understanding of human anatomy. They were well versed in the predictable timeline of biological decay. They set out to disprove a local legend about Ephraim Gray, a chemist who had supposedly spent his life developing an elixir for physical immortality. They broke into Gray's mausoleum to examine a man who had been dead for 20 years. According to every textbook they had studied, the casket should have contained nothing but bones. Inside, they found Gray's body perfectly preserved. His skin was smooth, his features were pristine, and there were 0 signs of the decomposition that science demanded should have occurred decades earlier. 30 years later, the mystery deepened. When the cemetery was relocated, workers found Gray's casket was entirely empty. There was no evidence of a break-in or any physical tampering since James and William's illicit visit. Medical biology could not account for a body that refused to decay, and the laws of physics offered no explanation for how that body eventually vanished from a sealed tomb. In 1945 Brazil, an Australian journalist and a group of skeptical doctors gathered in a sweltering church to observe a surgical procedure that defied the laws of physics. A complex appendectomy was performed inside a room where all windows were boarded up and the single door was securely locked. The surgeon worked entirely alone. The witnessing doctors knew that a successful operation of this nature requires a full surgical team to manage anesthesia, instruments, and precision. When the room was finally opened, the doctors found the patient successfully operated on and a jar containing the removed appendix. The surgeon was nowhere to be found. The man credited with the surgery, Dr. Gomes, had died 19 years before the operation took place. While the medical record lists Dr. Gomes as the surgeon, the physical reality is that the patient's appendix was removed by someone who had been dead for nearly 2 decades. Moved to San Francisco in 1957, Frances was under immense psychological strain as she cared for her terminally ill husband, Jean. One morning, Frances saw a man in her bedroom wearing a vintage 19th century outfit. He had strikingly blue eyes, grinned at her, and said, "I'm here for Jean." After Jean died the next day, Frances used psychological rationalization to cope. She convinced herself the figure was a hallucination brought on by her grief and anxiety. Months later, her daughter Jane revealed that she had seen the exact same man on that same morning, that the message Jane received was different. The entity told her, "I'm here for Jane." Jane died of undetected cancer exactly 1 year and 1 day after her father's death. The entity's clothing, striped pants, a white vest, and a black coat with coattails, was the precise formal uniform of a 19th century undertaker. The psychological defense of hallucination fails when the same detailed vision is witnessed independently by multiple parties and carries a specific fatal prediction. Across 3 different eras and disciplines, witnesses in these cases were forced to reconcile their professional training with events their textbooks said were impossible. When objective scientific logic fails to explain a physical event, the comfort of a purely rational worldview is lost. Our systems of biology, physics, and psychology are designed to map the living world. They remain blind to what lies beyond. These anomalous events suggest a boundary allowing two-way traffic. where the physical world remains vulnerable to interventions from the other side. The line between life and death is a porous boundary, and medical training provides no protection when something decides to cross over.